Sandarpanam Prabhu Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay, we can start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Tapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamahyam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapatakalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate He Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare. Okay, so today we're gonna read the chapter 31. So there is 10 pages. Okay, Ero Prabhu or Kapil Prabhu, you can start from this.
Can I start?
Prabhu, do you want- Yes, yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. The kidnapping of Subhadra and Lord Krishna's visiting Shrutadeva and Bahulasva. After hearing this incident, King Parikshit became more inquisitive to hear about Krishna and his pastimes. Thus he inquired from Sukadeva Goswami how his grandmother Subhadra was kidnapped by his grandfather Arjuna at the instigation of Lord Krishna. King Parikshit was very much eager to learn about his grandfather's kidnapping and marriage of his grandmother. Thus, Sukadeva Goswami began to narrate the story as follows. Once upon a time, your grandfather Arjuna, the great hero, uh, was visiting several holy places of pilgrimage, and while he was thus traveling all over, he happened to come to the Prabhasa Kshetra. In the Prabhasa Kshetra, he heard the news that Lord Balarama was negotiating the marriage of Subhadra, the daughter of Arjuna's maternal uncle Vasudeva. Although her father Vasudeva and her brother Krishna were not in agreement with him, Balarama was in favor of marrying Subhadra to Duryodhana. Arjuna, however, desired to gain the hand of Subhadra. As he thought of Subhadra and her beauty, Arjuna became more and more captivated with the idea of marrying her. And with the plan in mind, he dressed himself like a Vaishnava sannyasi, carrying a tridanda in his hand. The Mayavadi sannyasis take one danda or one rod, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasis take three danda or three rods. The three rods or tridanda indicate that a Vaishnava sannyasi vows to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his body, mind, and words. The system of Tridanda Sannyasa has been in existence for a long time, and the Vaishnava sannyasis are called Tridandis, or sometimes Tridandi Swamis or Tridandi Goswamis. Sannyasis are generally meant to travel all over the country for preaching work, but during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, from September through December, they do not travel but take shelter in one place and remain there without moving. This non movement of the sannyasis is called Chaturmasya Vrata. When a sannyasi takes when a sannyasi stays in a place for 4 months, the local inhabitants of that place take advantage of his presence to become spiritually advanced. Arjuna, in the dress of a Trilandi sannyasi, remained in the city of Dwarka for 4 months, devising a plan whereby he could get Subhadra as his wife. The inhabitants of Dwarka, as well as Lord Balarama, could not recognize the sannyasi to be Arjuna. Therefore, all of them offered their respect and obeisances to the sannyasi without knowing the actual situation. One day, Lord Balarama invited this particular sannyasi to lunch at his home. Balaramji very respectfully offered him all kinds of palatable dishes, and the so called sannyasi was eating sumptuously. While eating at the home of Balaramji, Arjuna was simply looking over beautiful Subhadra, who was very enchanting even to the great heroes and kings. Out of love for her, Arjuna's eyes brightened and he began to see her with glittering eyes. Arjuna decided that somehow or other he would achieve Subhadra as his wife, and his mind became agitated on account of this strong desire. Arjuna, the grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit, was himself extraordinarily beautiful, and his bodily structure was very much attractive to Subhadra. Subhadra also decided within her mind that she would accept only Arjuna as her husband. As a simple girl, she was smiling with great pleasure looking at Arjuna. Thus, Arjuna also became more and more attracted by her. In this way, Subhadra dedicated herself to Arjuna and he resolved to marry her by any means. He then became absorbed 24 hours a day in the thought of how he could get Subhadra as his wife. He was afflicted with the thought of getting Subhadra and had not a moment peace of mind. Once upon a time, Subhadra, seated on a chariot, came out of the palace fort to see the gods in the temple. Arjuna took this opportunity and, with the permission of Vasudeva and Devaki, he kidnapped her. After getting on Subhadra's chariot, he prepared himself for a fight. Taking up his bow and holding off with his arrows, the soldiers ordered to check him. Arjuna took Subhadra away. While Subhadra was being thus kidnapped by Arjuna, her relatives and family members began to cry, but still he took her, just as a lion takes his share and departs. When it was disclosed to Lord Balarama that the so called sannyasi was Arjuna and that he had planned such a device simply to take away Subhadra and that he had actually taken her, he became very angry. Just as the waves of the ocean become agitated on a full moon day, Lord Balarama became greatly disturbed. Lord Krishna was in favor of Arjuna. Therefore, along with other members of the family, he tried to pacify Balarama by falling at his feet and begging him to pardon Arjuna. Lord Balarama was then convinced that Subhadra was attached to Arjuna and he became pleased to know that she wanted Arjuna as her husband. The matter was settled, and in order to please the newly married couple, Lord Balarama arranged to send a dowry consisting of an abundance of riches, elephants, chariots, horses, servants, and maidservants. Maharaj Parikshit was very anxious to hear about Krishna, and so after finishing the narration of Arjuna's kidnapping Subhadra, Sukadeva Goswami began to narrate another story as follows. There was a householder Brahmana in the city of Mithila, the capital of the kingdom of Videha. The Brahmana, whose name was Shrutadeva, was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. Due to his being fully Krishna conscious and always engaged in the service of the Lord, he was completely peaceful in mind and detached from all material attraction. He was very learned and had no other desire than to be fully situated in Krishna consciousness. Although in the order of householder life, he never took great pains to earn anything for his livelihood. He was satisfied with whatever he could achieve without much endeavor, and somehow or other he lived in that way. Every day he would get necessities for life in just the quantity required and not more. That was his destiny. The Brahmana had no desire to get more than what he needed, and thus he was peacefully executing the regulative principles of Brahmana's life as enjoined in the revealed scriptures. Fortunately, the king of Mithila was as good a devotee as the Brahmana. The name of this famous king was Bahulasva. He was very well established in his reputation as a good king, and he was not at all ambitious to extend his kingdom for the sake of sense gratification. As such, both the Brahmana and King Bahulasva remained pure devotees of Lord Krishna in Mithila. Since Lord Krishna was very merciful upon those two devotees, King Bahulasva and the Brahmana, Shrutadeva, he one day asked his driver Daruka to take his chariot into the capital city of Mithila. Lord Krishna was accompanied by the great sages Narada, Vamadeva, Atri, and Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva, Parashurama, Asita, Aruni, Brihaspati, Kanva, Maitreya, Shyavana, and others. Lord Krishna and the sages were passing through many villages and towns, and everywhere the citizens would receive them with great respect and offer them articles in worship. When the citizens came to see the Lord and all of them assembled together in one place, it seemed that the sun was present along with his various satellite planets. In that journey, Lord Krishna and the sages passed through the kingdoms of Anartha, Dhanva, Kurujangala, Kanka, Matsya, Panchala, Kunti, Madhu, Kekaya, Kosala, and Arna. And thus all the citizens of these places, both men and women, could see Lord Krishna eye to eye. In this way, they enjoyed celestial happiness with open hearts full of love and affection for the Lord. And when they saw the face of the Lord, it seemed to them that they were drinking nectar through their eyes. When they saw Krishna, all the ignorant misconceptions of their lives dissipated. When the Lord passed through the various countries and the people came to visit him, simply by glancing over them, the Lord would bestow all good fortune upon them and liberate them from all kinds of ignorance. In some places, the demigods also would join with the human beings, and their glorification of the Lord would cleanse all directions of all inauspicious things. In this way, Lord Krishna slowly and gradually reached the kingdom of Videha. When the news of the Lord's arrival was received by the citizens, they all felt unlimited happiness and came to welcome him, taking gifts in their hands to offer. As soon as they saw Lord Krishna, their hearts immediately blossomed in transcendental bliss, just as a lotus flower blossoms on the rising of the sun. Previously, they had simply heard the names of the great sages, but had never seen them. Now, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, they had the opportunity of seeing both the great sages and the Lord himself. King Bahulasva, as well as the Brahmana Shrutadeva, knowing well that the Lord had come there just to grace them with favor, immediately fell at the Lord's lotus feet and offered their respects. With folded hands, the king and the Brahmana each simultaneously invited Lord Krishna and all the sages to his home. In order to please both of them, Lord Krishna expanded himself into two and went to the houses of each one of them. Yet neither the king nor the Brahmana could understand that the Lord had gone to the house of the other. Both thought that the Lord had gone only to his own house, that he and his companions were present in both houses. Although both the Brahmana and the king thought he was present in his house only, is another opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This opulence is described in the revealed scriptures as Vaibhava Prakasha. Similarly, when Lord Krishna married 16,000 wives, he also expanded himself into 16,000 forms, each one of them as powerful as he himself. Similarly, in Vrindavana, when Brahma stole away Krishna's calves, and cowherd boys, Krishna expanded himself into many new cows, calves, and cowherd boys. Bahulasva The king of Videha was very intelligent and was a perfect gentleman. He was astonished that so many great sages, along with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were personally present in his home. He knew perfectly well that the conditioned soul, especially when engaged in worldly affairs, cannot be 100% pure, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his pure devotees are always transcendental to worldly contamination. Therefore, when he found out that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and all the great sages were at his home, he was astonished and he began to thank Lord Krishna for his causeless mercy. Feeling very much obliged and wanting to receive his guest to the best of his capacity, he called for nice chairs and cushions, and Lord Krishna, along with all the sages, sat down very comfortably. At that time, King Bahulaswa's mind was very restless, not because of any problems, but because of great ecstasy of Lord and devotion. His heart was filled with love and affection for the Lord and his associates, and his eyes were filled with tears of ecstasy. He arranged to wash the feet of his divine guests, and after washing them, he and his family members sprinkled the water on their own heads. After this, he offered to the guests nice flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, incense, new garments, ornaments, lamps, cows, and bulls. In a manner just befitting his royal position. He worshipped each one of them in this way. When all had been fed sumptuously and were sitting very comfortably, Bahulaswa came before Lord Krishna and caught his lotus feet. He placed them on his lap and while massaging the feet with his hands, began to speak about the glories of the Lord in a sweet voice. My dear Lord, you are the super soul of all living entities, and as witness within the heart, are cognizant of everyone's activities. As such, being duty bound, we always think of your lotus feet so that we can remain in a secure position without deviating from your eternal service. As a result of our continuous remembrance of your lotus feet, you have kindly visited my place personally to favor me with your causeless mercy. We have heard, my dear Lord, that your various statements you confirm your pure devotees to be more dear to you than Lord Balarama or your constant servitor, the goddess of fortune. Your devotees are dearer to you than your first son, Lord Brahma, and I am sure that you have so kindly visited my place in order to prove your divine statement. I cannot imagine how people can be godless and demoniac even after knowing of your causeless mercy and affection for your devotees who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. How can they forget your lotus feet? My dear Lord, it is known to us that you are so kind and liberal that when a person leaves everything just to engage in Krishna consciousness, you sometimes give yourself in exchange for that unalloyed service. You have appeared in the Yadu dynasty to fulfill your mission of reclaiming all conditioned souls rotting in the sinful activities of material existence, and this appearance is already famous all over the world. My dear Lord, you are the ocean of unlimited mercy, love, and affection. Your transcendental form is full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. You can attract everyone's heart by your beautiful form as Syamasundara Krishna, Syamasundara Krishna. Your knowledge is unlimited, and to teach all people how to execute devotional service, you have sent your incarnation, Naranarayana, who is engaged in severe austerities and penances at Badrinarayana. Kindly, therefore, accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, my dear Lord. I beg to request you and your companions, the great sages and brahmanas, to remain at my place so that this family of the famous King Nimi may be sanctified by the dust of your lotus feet at least for a few days. Lord Krishna could not refuse the request of his devotee, and thus he remained there for a few days along with the sages in order to sanctify the city of Mithila and all its citizens. Meanwhile, the Brahmana, simultaneously receiving Lord Krishna and his associates at his home, became transcendently overwhelmed with joy. After offering his guests nice sitting places, the Brahmana began to dance, throwing his wrap around his body. Shrutadeva, being not at all rich, offered only mattresses, wooden planks, straw carpets, etc. to his distinguished guests. Lord Krishna and the sages Lord Krishna and the sages, but he welcomed them with his best capacity. He began to speak very highly of the Lord and the sages, and he and his wife washed the feet of each one of them. After this, he took the water and sprinkled it all over the members of the family. And although it appeared that the Brahmana was very poor, he was at that time most fortunate. While Shrutadeva was welcoming Lord Krishna and his associates, he simply forgot himself in transcendental joy. After welcoming the Lord and his companions according to his capacity, he brought fruits, incense, scented water, scented clay, tulasi leaves, kusha straw, and lotus flowers. They were not very costly items and could be secured very easily. But because they were offered with devotional service, Lord Krishna and his associates accepted them very gladly. The Brahmana's wife cooked very simple foods like rice, dal, and Lord Krishna and his followers were very pleased to accept them because they were offered in devotional love. When Lord Krishna and his associates were fed in this way, the Brahmana Shrutadeva was thinking thus: I am fallen into the deep, dark well of Shrutadev, of householder life, and am the most unfortunate person. How has it become possible that Lord Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his associates, the great sages, whose very presence makes a place as sanctified as the pilgrimage site, have agreed to come to my place? While the Brahmana was thinking in this way, the guests finished their lunch and sat back very comfortably. At that time, the Brahmana, Shrutadeva, and his wife, children, and other relatives appeared there to render service to the distinguished guests. While touching the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and the Brahmana began to speak. My dear Lord, he said, you are the Supreme Person Purushottama, situated transcendentally to the manifested and unmanifested material creation. The activities of this material world and of the conditioned souls have nothing to do with your position. We can appreciate that it is not only that we can appreciate that it is not that only today you have given me your audience. You are associating with all the living entities as Paramatma since the beginning of creation. This statement of the Brahmana is very instructive. It is a fact that the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma teacher entered the creation of this material world as Mahavishnu, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, and Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu. And in a very friendly attitude, the Lord is sitting along with with the conditioned soul in the body. Therefore, every living entity has the Lord with him from the very beginning. But due to his mistaken consciousness of life, the living entity cannot understand this. When his consciousness is, however, changed into Krishna consciousness, he can immediately understand how Krishna is trying to assist the conditioned soul to get out of the material entanglement. Shrutadeva continued, my dear Lord, you have entered this material world as if in a sleeping condition. A conditioned soul, while sleeping, creates false or temporary worlds. He becomes busy in many illusory activities, sometimes becoming a king, sometimes being murdered, or sometimes going to an unknown city, and all these are simply temporary affairs. Similarly, your lordship, apparently also in a sleeping condition, enters this material world to create a temporary manifestation, not for your personal necessities, but for the conditioned soul who wants to imitate your lordship as enjoyer. The conditioned soul's enjoyment in the material world is temporary and illusory. And yet the conditioned soul is by himself unable to create such a temporary situation for his illusory enjoyment. And yet the conditioned soul is by himself unable to create such a temporary situation for his illusory enjoyment. Prabhu, can I ask the meaning in between, or we'll discuss that later?
Hare Krishna, you mean this one?
Yes, Prabhu. The conditioned soul's enjoyment in the material world is temporary and illusory, and yet the conditioned soul is by himself unable to create such a temporary situation for his. Okay, I got it. Okay.
Also, that's created by Krishna, also by the Maya.
Okay, yes, Prabhu. In order to fulfill his desires, although they are temporary and illusory, you enter in this temporary manifestation to help him. Thus, from the beginning of the conditioned soul entering into the material world, you are his constant companion. When therefore the conditioned soul comes in contact with a pure devotee and takes to devotional service, beginning from the process of hearing your transcendental pastimes, glorifying your transcendental activities, worshipping your eternal form in the temple, offering prayers to you, and engaging in discussion to understand your transcendental position, he then gradually becomes freed from the contamination of material existence. His heart becomes cleansed of all material dust, and thus gradually you become visible in the heart of the devotee. Although you are constantly with the conditioned soul, you only when he becomes purified by devotional service to you do you become revealed to him. Others who are bewildered by fruitive activities, either by Vedic injunction or customary dealings, and the who do not take the devotional service, become captivated by the external happiness of the bodily concept of life. You are not revealed to such persons. Rather, you remain far, far away from them. But for one who, being engaged in your devotional service, has purified his heart by constant chanting of your holy name, you become very easily understood as his eternal constant companion. It is said that your lordship, sitting in the heart of the devotee, gives him direction by which he can very quickly come back to home, back to you. This direct dictation by you reveals your existence within the heart of the devotee. Only a devotee can immediately appreciate your existence within his heart. Whereas for a person who has only a bodily concept of life is engaged in sense gratification, you always remain covered by the curtain of Yoga Maya. Such a person cannot realize that you are very near sitting within his heart. For a non devotee, you are appreciated only as ultimate death. The difference is like the difference between a cat carrying its kitten in its mouth and a cat carrying a rat in its mouth. In the mouth of the cat, the rat feels its death, whereas the kittens in the mouth of the cat feel motherly affection. Similarly, you are present in everyone, but the Krishna. But the non devotee feels you as ultimate cruel death, whereas for a devotee, you are the supreme instructor and philosopher. The atheist therefore understands the presence of God as death, but the devotee understands the presence of God within his heart, takes dictation from you, and lives transcendentally, not being affected by the contamination of the material world. You are the supreme controller and superintendent of the material nature's activities. The atheistic class of men simply observe the activities of material nature but cannot find you as the original background. A devotee, however, can immediately see your hand in every movement of material nature. The curtain of Yogamaya cannot cover the eyes of the devotee of your lordship, but it can cover the eyes of the non devotee. The non devotee is unable to see you eye to eye, just as a person whose eyes are interrupted by the covering of a cloud cannot see the sun. Although persons who are flying above the cloud can see the sunshine brilliantly as it is. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My dear self effulgent Lord, am I am your eternal servitor. Therefore, kindly order me. What can I do for you? The conditioned soul feels the pangs of material contamination as threefold miseries as long as you are not visible to him. And as soon as you are visible, by development of Krishna consciousness, all miseries of material existence simultaneously become vanquished. Hare Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is naturally very much affectionately inclined to his devotees. When he heard Shrutadeva's prayers of pure devotion, he was very much pleased and immediately caught his hands and began to address him thus: My dear Shrutadeva, all these great sages and saintly persons have been very kind to you by personally coming here to see you. You should consider this opportunity to be a great fortune for you. They are so kind that they are traveling with me, and wherever they go, they immediately take the whole atmosphere as pure transcendence simply by the touch of the dust of their feet. People are accustomed to go to the temples of God. They also visit holy places of pilgrimage, and after prolonged association with such activities for many days by great and by touch and by worship, gradually they become purified. But the influence of great sages and saintly persons is so great that by seeing them one immediately becomes completely purified. Moreover, the very purifying potency of pilgrimages or worship of different demigods is also achieved by the grace of saintly persons. A pilgrimage site becomes a holy place because of the presence of the saintly persons there. My dear Shrutadeva, when a person is born as a Brahmana, he immediately becomes the best of all human beings. And if such a Brahmana, remaining self satisfied, practices austerities, studies the Vedas, and engages in my devotional service, as as is the duty of the Brahmana, or in other words, if a Brahmana becomes a Vaishnava, how wonderful is his greatness. My feature of four-handed Narayana is not so pleasing or dear to me as is a Brahmana Vaishnava. Brahmana means one well conversant in the Vedic knowledge. A Brahmana is the insignia of perfect knowledge, and I am the full-fledged manifestation of all gods. The less intelligent class of men do not understand me as the highest knowledge, nor do they understand the influence of the Brahmana Vaishnava. They are influenced by the three modes of material nature and thus dare to criticize me and my pure devotees. A Brahmana Vaishnava or a devotee already in the Brahmanical platform can realize me within his heart, and therefore he definitely concludes that the whole cosmic manifestation and its different features are effects of different energies of the Lord. Thus, he has a clear conception of the material nature and the total material energy. And in every action, such a devotee sees me only and nothing else. My dear Srutadeva, you may therefore accept all these great saintly persons, brahmanas and sages as my bona fide representatives. By worshipping them faithfully, you will be worshipping me more diligently. I consider worship of my devotees to be better than direct worship of me. If someone attempts to worship me directly without worshipping my devotees, I do not accept such worship, even though it may be presented with great opulence. In this way, both the Brahmana, Shrutadeva, and the king of Mithila, under the direction of the Lord, worship both Krishna and his followers, the great sages and saintly Brahmanas, on an equal level of spiritual importance. Both Brahmana and king ultimately achieved the supreme goal of being transferred to the spiritual world. The devotee does not know anyone except Lord Krishna, and Krishna is most affectionate to his devotee. Lord Krishna remained in Mithila, both at the house of the Brahmana Shrutadeva and at the palace of King Bahulasva. And after favoring them lavishly by his transcendental instructions, he went back to his capital city, Dwarka. The instruction we receive from this incident is that Lord Bahulasva and Shrutadeva, the Brahmana, were accepted by the Lord on the same level because both were pure devotees. This is the real qualification for being recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because it has become the fashion of this age to become falsely proud of having taken birth in the family of a Kshatriya or of a Brahmana. We see persons without any qualification other than birth claiming to be Brahmana or Kshatriya or Vaishya. But as it is stated in the scriptures, Kalau Shudra Sambhava, in this age of Kali, everyone is a Shudra. This is because there is no performance of the purificatory processes known as samskaras, which begin from the time of the mother's pregnancy and continue up to the point of the individual's death. No one can be classified as a member of a particular caste, Hare Krishna, especially of a higher caste, Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, simply by birthright. If one is not purified by the process of the seed giving ceremony or Garbhadana Samskara, he is immediately classified among the Shudras. Because only the Shudras do not undergo this purificatory process. Sex life without the purificatory process of Krishna consciousness is merely the seed giving process of the Shudras or the animals. But Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection by which everyone can come to the platform of a Vaishnava. This includes having all the qualifications of the Brahmana. The Vaishnavas are trained to become freed from the four kinds of sinful activities: illicit sex, indulgent in intoxicants, gambling, and eating animal foodstuffs. No one can be on the Brahmanical platform without having these preliminary qualifications, and without becoming a qualified Brahmana, one cannot become a pure devotee. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 31st chapter of Krishna, the kidnapping of Subhadra and Lord Krishna's visiting Shrutadeva and Bahulasva.
Go.
Whoa. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu, I wanted to stop in between so that someone else can take over, but in the
No,
flow,
it's okay, Prabhu. No, it's okay. I understand.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Prabhu, the two, I joined like 5 minutes late. The two Brahmanas who Prabhu, the king Bahuswala, like Bahulas, Bahulaswa, like that, and Shuddhadeva Brahmanas.
Oh,
Oh, too long chapter.
like 60 pages.
Oh, Krishna.
Oh, it's 70 pages, Prabhu.
Hmm.
Yes, we need to see again.
Hmm.
Started.
Like I joined 5 minutes late. Sorry, Prabhu.
Oh, no problem, Prabhu.
Can I read or anything?
Yes, you can read of the end. We can read a few pages of the end again, so you can.
First 2 pages, I think so.
Prabhu. You can read 3 from here.
Sorry, Prabhu. Dear Lord, it's very difficult for living entities to get to see you, yet when you are merciful upon you devotees, it becomes easy for them to see you as such. Only not out of your causeless mercy have you agreed to come here and be visible to us who are generally influenced by the qualities of my ignorance and passion. My dear Lord, we belong to the Daitya or demon category. The demons or the demonic persons, the Gandharvas, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, the Charanas and the Yakshas, Rakshasas, Pishachas, the ghost and the hobgoblins are incapable by nature of worshipping you or becoming your devotees. Instead of becoming your devotees, they simply become impediments on the path of devotion. But opposite to them, you are the supreme person of Godhead, representing all the Vedas and situated in the mode of uncontaminated goodness. Your position is always transcendental. For this reason, some of us, although born of the modes of passion or ignorance, have taken shelter of your lotus feet and become devotees. Some of us are actually pure devotees, and Some of us have taken shelter of your lotus feet, desiring to gain something from devotion. By your causeless mercy, you only we demons are in direct contact with your personality. This contact is not possible even for the great demigods. No one knows how you act through your yogamaya potency. Even demigods cannot calculate the expense of the activities of your internal potency. So how it how is it possible for us to know it? I therefore place my humble prayers before you. Please be kind to me, who am fully surrendered unto you, and favor me with your causeless mercy, so that I may simply remember you, your lotus feet, birth after birth. My only ambition is that I may live alone, just like a Paramahamsas who are traveling alone here and there in great peace of mind. Depend simply upon your lotus feet. I also desire that if I have to associate with anyone, they may be only your pure devotees and no one else, because your pure devotees are always well wishers of all living entities. My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Master and Director of the whole world. Please, therefore, engage me in your service and let me those become freed from all contaminations. You can purify me in the way, because if someone engages himself in the loving service of your Lordship, he immediately becomes free from all kinds of regulative principles enjoyed in the Vedas. The word Paramahamsa remained. Mentioned here means the supreme swan. It is said that the swan can draw milk out from a reservoir of water. It can take only the milk portion and reject the watery portion. Similarly, a person who can draw out the spiritual portion from this material world and who uh, can live alone, depending only on the supreme spirit, not on the material body. Oh, sorry, material world. Is called Paramahamsa. When one achieves the Paramahamsa platform, he is no longer under the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. A Paramahamsa accepts only the association of pure devotees and rejects others who are too materially addicted. In other words, those who are materially addicted cannot understand the value of the Paramahamsa, but those who are fortunately advanced in spiritual senses take shelter of the Paramahamsas and thus successfully complete the mission of human life. After Lord Krishna heard the prayers of Bali Maharaj, he spoke as follows: My dear king of the demons, in the millennium of the Swayambhu, sorry, Swayambhuma Bhuva Manu, the Prajapita, known as Marichi, begot six sons. Oh, okay. Yesterday we read this.
Yes, Prabhu, we went too much back.
Oh, Krishna. Like, I'm wondering.
Let's read these 2 pages.
My dear Lord, I am your eternal servitor, Subhadra. Oh, the Supreme Center of God is naturally very. Prabhu, like, another 2 pages back. Like, I want to, like, no, don't, no, Prabhu, don't. I heard this on all things, Prabhu, but I want that the two Brahmanas who I don't know. So, first, starting, Prabhu,
First 10.
starting chapter of, starting 2 pages, I think. Yes, Prabhu, from here. Uh, the kidnapping of Subhadra and Lord Krishna's visiting. Yes, Prabhu. After hearing this incident, King Prajapita, King Parikshit became more inquisitive to hear about Krishna and his pastimes, and those he inquired from Sukadeva Goswami how his grandmother Subhadra was kidnapped by his grandfather Arjuna at the instigation of Lord Krishna. King Parikshit was very much eager to learn about his grandfather's kidnapping and marriage of his grandmother. The Sukadeva Goswami began to narrate the whole story as follows. Once upon a time, your younger father Arjuna, the great hero, was visiting several holy places of pilgrimage, and while he was thus traveling all over, he happened to come to the um, Prabhash Prabhashetra. Prabhashetra. In the Prabhashetra, he heard the news that Lord Balarama was negotiating the marriage of Subhadra, the daughter of Arjuna's maternal uncle, Vasudeva. Although her father Vasudeva and her brother Krishna were not in agreement with him, Balarama was in favor of marrying Subhadra to the Duryodhana. Arjuna, however, desired to gain the hand of Subhadra. Mm, as he thought of Subhadra and her beauty, Arjuna became more and more captivated with the idea of marrying her, and with a plan the dress he mind his sorry he in mind he dressed himself like a Vaishnava sannyasi carrying a tridanda in his hand. The Mayavadi sannyasi take one danda or one rod, whereas the Vaishnava sannyasi take the three danda or three rods. The three rods or three danda indicate that a Vaishnava sannyasi vows to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his body, mind and words. The system of Tridanda Sannyasa has been in existence for a long time, and the Vaishnava Sannyasa are called Tridandis, or sometimes Tridandi Swamis or Tridandi Goswamis. Sannyasis are generally meant to travel all over the country for preaching work. But during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, from September to December, they do not travel but take shelter in one place and remain there without moving. This non-movement of the sannyasis is called Chaturmasya Varta. When a sannyasi stays in a place for 4 months, the local inhabitants of that place take advantage of his presence to become spiritually advanced. Arjuna, in the dress of Chirandi sannyasi, remained in the city of Dwarka for 4 months, devising a plan whereby he could get Subhadra as his wife. The inhabitants of the Dwarka as well as the Lord Balarama could not recognize the sannyasi to be Arjuna. Therefore, all of them offered their respect and obeisances to the sannyasi without knowing the actual situation. One day, Lord Balarama invited this particular sannyasi to lunch at his home. Balaramji very respectfully offered him all kinds of palatable dishes, and the so-called sannyasi was eating symptomatically. While eating at the home of Balaramji, Arjuna was simply looking over beautiful Subhadra, who was very enchanting even to the great heroes and kings. Out of love for her, Arjuna's eyes brightened, and he began to see her with glittering eyes. Arjuna decided that somehow or other he could not achieve Subhadra as his wife, and his mind became agitated on account of his strong desire. Arjuna, the grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit, was um, himself extraordinarily beautiful, and his bodily structure was very much attractive to Subhadra. Subhadra also decided within her mind with mind that she could accept only Arjuna as her husband. As a simple girl, she was smiling with great pleasure, looking at Arjuna. Thus, Arjuna also became more and more attracted by her. But in this way, Subhadra dedicated herself to Arjuna, and he resolved to marry her by any means. He then became observed 24 hours a day in the thought of how he could get Subhadra as his wife. He was afflicted with the thought of lot of getting Subhadra and had not a moment's peace of mind. Once upon a time, Subhadra visited a chariot came out of the place for to see the gods in the gods in the temple. Arjuna took this opportunity and with the permission of Vasudeva and Devaki, he kidnapped her. After getting a Subhadra's chariot, he prepared himself for a fight, taking up his bow and for holding off with his arrows at the shoulders, ordered to check him. Arjuna took Subhadra away. While Subhadra was being those kidnapped by Arjuna, he revealed her relatives and family members began to cry, but still he took her just as a lion takes his share and departs. When it was disclosed to Lord Balarama that the so-called sannyasi was Arjuna and that he had planned such a device simply to take away Subhadra and that he had actually taken her, he became very angry, just as the waves of the ocean became agitated on a full moon day. Lord Balaram became greatly disturbed.
Yes, Prabhu. Then Arjuna. So let's see what Arjuna then.
Okay, then Lord Krishna is a favor, and then Balarama, he tried to pacify Balarama by falling his feet and begging him to pardon Arjuna. Lord Balarama was then conceived, so Bhadra was attached to Arjuna, and he became pleased to know that she wanted Arjuna as her husband. The matter was settled, and in order to please him, okay. Ram arranged to send. Okay. Maharaj Parikta was very anxious to hear about more about Krishna, and so after finishing the narration of Arjuna's kidnapping, so Bhadra Sukadev Goswami began to narrate another story of as well. This story I want to. There was a householder Brahmana in the city of householder Brahmana in the city of Mithila, the capital of the kingdom of Vidheba. This Brahmana, whose name was Sutadeva, was a great devotee of the Lord due to his being fully Krishna consciousness and always engaged in the service of the Lord. He was completely peaceful in mind and detached from all material attraction. He was very learned and had no other desires than to be fully situated in Krishna consciousness. Although in the order of the householder life, he never took great pains to earn anything for his livelihood. He was satisfied with whatever he could achieve without much endeavor, and somehow or other he lived in that way. Every day he would get necessities for life in just the quantity required and not more. That was his destiny. The Brahmana had no desire to get more than what he needed, and thus he was peacefully executed the regulative principle of the Brahmana's life as enjoyed in the revealed scriptures. Fortunately, the king of Mithila was a good or a good was a good devotee as the Brahmana. The mm, name of this famous king was Bau. King of Mithila was as good a devotee as the Brahmana. Okay. 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 He was very well established in his reputation as a good king, and he was not at all ambitious to extend his kingdom for the sake of sense gratification. As such, both the Brahmana, the king, remained pure devotees of the Lord Krishna in the Middle East. Since Lord Krishna was very merciful upon these two devotees, King Bhavushala and Brahmana Sutadeva, he one day asked here, okay, Prabhu, I understand, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Sorry, Prabhu, for the understand.
That was really nice, Prabhu, for reading
Yes,
it
Prabhu.
again.
Thanks.
We got rehearsal. That's nice. Okay, now let's read Shiksastakam prayers.
Yes, Prabhu.
Marjanam Bhavamaha Davagniर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं यावादु जीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्.
नामनामकारि बोधामि च सर्वशक्तिवृत्तार्पिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काला एतादृशी तव कृपापगमन् ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशं महे जनीननुग्रहा Hero Prabhu or Kapil Srivastava Prabhu can read one only.
तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि.
Nadanam Narjanam. Oh my God, someone else. Yeah.
Oh, Prabhu, you can continue. Ibo.
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगति स कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भावतात् भक्तिर् अहैतुकी त्वयि.
ऐनन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कजस्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तया.
नयनं गलदाश्रुतारया वदनं गद्गदहृदया गिरा पुलकर्णचिन्तं वपु कदा तव नामग्रहणे भविष्यति
युगायितं निमेषेन चक्षुषा प्रवृस्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहीनमे.
अश्लिष्यवापादरतं पिनष्टु माम् अदर्शनन्मर्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पतो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु स एव न परः. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings and those you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names, O my Lord, out of kindness, so you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your costless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am a returned servitor. At some or other, I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from the east ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my speech be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
Oh, Govind, the feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like tolerance of rain. I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Six Astakam ki jai. Haribo. Okay, then the 10 offenses. First offense, to blaspheme the devotees who are dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal or to be independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu.
To disobey the order of the spiritual master or consider him as an ordinary person.
Blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic version.
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination.
To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name.
To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as spiritual activities Karmakanda.
To instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema.
Pancha Kalpata. Namo and the Gaudiya Vaishnava ki jai, Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo.